Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. Apologies for the spotty uploads. Been sick, but oh well. This morning we will be in 1 Chronicles, chapter 1, verse 1 through chapter 2, verse 17. Adam, Seth, Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The sons of Japheth: Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tiras. The sons of Gomer: Ashkenaz, Repheth, and Togarmah. The sons of Javan: Elisha, Tarshish, the Kittites, and the Rodanites. The sons of Ham: Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush: Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Ramah, and Sabteka. The sons of Ramah: Sheba and Dedan. Cush was the father of Nimrod, who established himself as a mighty warrior on earth. Mizraim was the father of the Luddites, Anamites, Lehabites, Naphtuhites, Pathrusites, Casluhites, from whom the Philistines descended, and the Caphtorites. Canaan was the father of Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, as well as the Jebusites, Amorites, Girgashites, Hivites, Arkites, Sinites, Arvadites, Zemarites, and Hamathites. The sons of Shem: Elam, Asher, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. The sons of Aram: Uz, Hul, Gether, and Meshach. Arphaxad was the father of Shelah, and Shelah was the father of Eber. 2 sons were born to Eber. The first was named Peleg, for during his lifetime the earth was divided. His brother's name was Joktan. Joktan was the father of Almadad, Sheleph, Hazarmaveth, Jerah, Hadoram, Uzal, Diklah, Ebal, Abimael, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. All these were the sons of Joktan. Shem: Arphaxad, Shelah, Eber, Peleg, Reu, Serug, Nahor, Terah, Abram, that is, Abraham. The sons of Abraham: Isaac and Ishmael. These were their descendants. Ishmael's firstborn son was Nebaioth. The others were Kedar, Abdeel, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, Tema, Jeter, Naphish, and Kedemah. These were the sons of Ishmael. The sons to whom Keturah, Abraham's concubine, gave birth: Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, Shua. The sons of Jokshan: Sheba and Dedan. The sons of Midian: Ephah, Epher, Hanok, Abidah, and Eldah. All these were the sons of Keturah. Abraham was the father of Isaac. The sons of Isaac: Esau and Israel. The sons of Esau: Eliphaz, Reuel, Jaish, Jalam, and Korah. The sons of Eliphaz: Teman, Omar, Zephi, Gatam, Kenaz, and by Timnah, Amalek. The sons of Reuel: Nahath, Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. The sons of Seir: Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anna, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishan. The sons of Lotan: Hori and Homam. Timnah was Lotan's sister. The sons of Shobal: Alian, Manahath, Ebal, Shephi, and Onam. The sons of Zibeon: Aya and Anna. The sons of Anna: Dishon. The sons of Dishon: Hamran, Eshban, Ithran, and Karen. The sons of Ezer: Bilhan, Zavan, Jakan. The sons of Dishon: Uz and Aran. These were the kings who reigned in the land of Edom, before any king ruled over the Israelites. Bela, son of Beor, the name of his city, was Dinhaba. When Bela died, Jobab, son of Zerah, from Bozrah, succeeded him. When Jobab died, Husham, from the land of the Temanites, succeeded him. When Husham died, Hadad, son of Bedad, succeeded him. He struck down the Midianites in the plains of Moab. The name of his city was Avith. When Hadad died, Samlah from Masrekah succeeded him. When Samlah died, Shaul from Rehoboth on the river succeeded him. When Shaul died, Baal-Hanan, son of Akbor, succeeded him. When Baal-Hanan died, Hadad succeeded him. The name of his city was Pai. His wife was Mehetabel, daughter of Metred, daughter of Mezahab. Hadad died. The tribal chiefs of Edom were Timnah, Ava, Jeheth, Oholabama, Elah, Penan, Kenaz, Teman, Mibzar, Magdiel, Iram. These were the tribal chiefs of Edom. These were the sons of Israel: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar and Zebulun, Dan, Joseph, and Benjamin, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. The sons of Judah: Onan, and Shelah. These three were born to him by Bathshua, a Canaanite woman. Judah's firstborn, displeased the Lord, so the Lord killed him. Tamar, Judah's daughter-in-law, bore to him Perez and Zerah. Judah had 5 sons in all. The sons of Perez, Hezron, and Hamul. The sons of Zerah: Zimri, Ethan, Heman, Calcol, Dara, 5 in all. The sons of Carmi: Achan, who brought the disaster on Israel when he stole what was devoted to God. The son of Ethan: Azariah. The sons born to Hezron: Jeremiel, Ram, and Caleb. Ram was the father of Amminadab, and Amminadab was the father of Nahshon, the tribal chief of Judah. Nahshon was the father of Salma, and Salma was the father of Boaz. Boaz was the father of Obed, and Obed was the father of Jesse. Jesse was the father of Eliab, his firstborn. Abinadab was born second, Shimei third, Nethanel fourth, Radai fifth, Ozem sixth, David seventh. Their sisters were Zeruiah and Abigail. Zeruiah's 3 sons were Abishai, Joab, and Asahel. Abigail bore Amasa, whose father was Jether the Ishmaelite. Caleb, son of Hezron, fathered sons by his wife Azubah, also known as Jerioth. Her sons were Jesher, Shobab, and Arden. When Azubah died, Caleb married Ephrath, who bore him Hur. Hur was the father of Uri, and Uri was the father of Bezalel. Later, Hezron had sexual relations with the daughter of Machir, the father of Gilead. He had married her when he was 60 years old. She bore him Segub. Segub was the father of Jair, who owned 23 cities in the land of Gilead. Oh, I went a little bit long. Oh well. Yes. So, lots and lots of names. But, yeah, this goes from the start, from Adam, up to, let me see here. We went up to past Abraham, up to David, actually, which is interesting. And there's a lot of different stories associated with this. It's just, I don't know, difficult to keep all in mind here. This honestly feels more like reference material in that I wish going through the other stories that there was some way of like demonstrating, oh, this person was such and such's great-grandson or something to that effect. But it is what it is. Let's see what Guzik has to say here. Because with all these names, you can dive into the various stories associated with them. Like Adam, you have the creation account there. Noah, of course, the flood there, along with Shem, Ham, and Japheth, where you see kind of the repopulation of the known world there, and the descendants from there, like Canaan being a descendant of Ham, and all sorts of other things, I guess. Also the descendants of Abraham, and all of the narrative associated with him. But anyway, from Guzik. Adam, Seth, Enosh. The opening verse of the books of Chronicles indicates something of their focus. We know that Adam and Eve actually had 3 sons by name, plus many other unnamed sons and daughters. Yet in this first verse, we read nothing of Cain or Abel, only of Seth. This indicates that the chronicler was inspired by God to make a selective genealogy for a specific purpose. Yeah, we're being guided through this genealogy. The books of 1st and 2nd Chronicles were originally one book, and focus historically on King David and his dynasty after him. The actual history begins with the death of Saul, but the stage is set with these genealogical tables. The story continues until the return of the exiles from the Babylonian captivity, leading many to think that the books were written by Ezra, or at least in his time. Since Chronicles appear to be the work of an individual writer who was a Levitical leader, some identification with Ezra, the priest and scribe, appears possible from the outset, from Payne. We can imagine the importance of these genealogical lists for the returning exiles. The message of the continuity of God's work through the generations was important for them, as well as helping them to affirm their own place in that flow of God's work through the ages. Yeah. I imagine it was really difficult for the exiles, having been deported to Babylon, and I imagine feeling disconnected from God's promised land and from everything that really provided a national identity for them. But here you have this connection with the identity, and oh goodness, you can see some of that. I think in Ezra that there was an importance of searching the genealogies there, especially for the purpose of finding new priests to man the temple, which those who worked in the temple could be Levites, descendants of Levi, but the high priests, well, the priests had to come from a son of Levi, that is Aaron. So genealogy was important for them. The principal design of the writer appears to have been this: to point out from the public registers, which were still preserved, what had been the state of the different families previously to the captivity, that at their return they might enter in and repossess their respective inheritances. He enters particularly into the functions, genealogies, families, and orders of the priests and Levites, and this was peculiarly necessary after the return from the captivity, to the end that the worship of God might be conducted in the same way as before, and by the proper, legitimate persons. These books of the Chronicles are not the same which are so called in 1 Kings, like in 1 Kings 14, verse 19, and the rest of the acts of Jeroboam, how he warred and how he reigned. Behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel. Because some passages said to be there mentioned are not found here, but other books, and written by other persons and for other ends, from Poole. Yeah, I imagine during the reigns of these kings, they would have scribes who wrote down the acts of the kings and chronicled the various goings-on of the kingdoms during their time. It was not, in fact, until the 4th century AD that Jerome, the famous Bible translator, first applied the term Chronicles to these books. The mediating influence came from Luther, whose German title, Die Chronica, passed into English, with Bible translations proliferated during the Reformation period, from Selman. Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. This father and his 3 sons, each survivors of the flood, became the basis for the nations in the post-flood world. The span from Adam to Noah and his sons is common to all humanity. This first chapter is a summary of the generations of Genesis, from Adam to Edom/Esau, shows that all the nations were God's creation, and therefore part of his special purpose for Israel, from Selman. Yeah, we all share in this introductory genealogy. The sons of Japheth. It is commonly supposed that the 7 sons of Japheth founded the people of Europe and northern Asia, from Pain. From Javan came Greek Ionia. From Gomer came the ancient Cimmerians of the Russian plains. From Madai came the Medes and the Persians of Iran. From Tubal and Meshech came the inhabitants of the Turkish plateau. Kittim and Rhodanim, these are respectively the islands of Cyprus and Rhodes. Well, Rhodanim makes sense. Ham, the descendants of Ham, are the peoples who populated Africa in the Far East. Cush, apparently this family divided into 2 branches early. Some founded Babylon, notably Nimrod, and others founded Ethiopia. Clark cites an early Jewish Targum regarding Nimrod, who began to be a mighty one on the earth. He began to be bold in sin, a murderer of the innocent, and a rebel before the Lord. Mizraim. This is another way the Bible refers to Egypt. Put refers to Libya, the region of North Africa west of Egypt. Canaan refers to the peoples who originally settled the land we today think of as Israel and its surrounding regions, from whom came the Philistines. The Hamitic Philistines were sea peoples, before settling in Palestine, coming from the Kasluhim, who were of Egyptian origin, but are related to the Minoan culture of Kaftor, Crete, and the southern coast of Asia Minor, from Pain. The sons of Shem. From Shem came Elam, who was an ancestor to the Persian peoples. Asher, who was the father of the Syrians. Lud was father to the Lydians, who lived for a time in Asia Minor. And Aram was father to the Arameans, who we also know as the Syrians. Arphaxad was the ancestor to Abram and the Hebrews. Significantly, the chronicler included the nations that held Israel in exile, such as the Persians. As the chronicler recorded this sweeping panorama of all the nations as having a part in God's plan, it assured Israel that they were still part of the Lord's plan, and so were the nations that held them in exile. Uz, later a region in Arabia, was named after this son of Aram. Job came from the land of Uz. Uz gave the name of the home of the patriarch Job, who may thus have been an early Edomite descendant of Esau. Some think that Jobab is another name for Job, but their names are actually quite different in Hebrew. Supposed by some to be the same as Job, whose book forms a part of the canon of Scripture, but in their names there is no similarity, from Clark. And Shelah begot Eber. The name Eber forms the root of Hebrew, but this patriarch was ancestor not only of Abraham, but also of a number of other unsettled people, known in ancient history as Habiru or Apiru, from Pain. Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided. This seems to refer to the dividing of the nations at the Tower of Babel, described in Genesis 11. The sons of Abraham were Isaac and Ishmael. Isaac, this was the son of promise in the covenant, whose birth was announced in Genesis 17 and 18, and whose life is recorded in Genesis 21 through 27. Ishmael, this was the son born of Hagar, blessed as a son of Abraham, but not an heir to the promise or the covenant. Yeah. Just thinking back to that, Isaac was the child of promise. His birth was prophesied, and he was to be sacrificed on the mountain, which just interesting images of Christ there. These were the sons of Ishmael. God promised to make a great nation through Ishmael. These descendants were the beginning of the fulfillment of that promise, ultimately fulfilled in the Arabic peoples. All these were the children of Keturah. This was the second wife of Abraham, taken after the death of Sarah. The sons of Isaac were Esau and Israel. Of these 2 sons, only Israel was chosen as the son of the promise and the heir of the covenant of Abraham. Nevertheless, the sons of Esau were still important to God and had a place in his eternal plan. These were the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before a king reigned over the children of Israel. It seems that the kings of Edom came into power before the kings of Israel. In this, the chronicler reminds the reader that God's ways have their own timing and wisdom, a timing and wisdom which is sometimes apparent and sometimes not. The list of the kings of Edom shows that Esau was indeed a blessed man, though he was rejected as the inheritor of the covenant of Abraham. Bela, Jobab, Zerah, Husham. The steady repetition of the names may seem to be an irrelevant blur to the modern reader, but they have an important place in God's plan of the ages. If nothing else, they demonstrate the reality of prior generations and our connection to both them and God's broader plan, just as a walk through a graveyard can speak the same thing to us. This is an ancient graveyard. The names of past generations who were born and died, who loved and suffered, who stormed and fought through the world, are engraven on these solid slabs, but there's no inscription to record their worth or demerit, just names and nothing more. From Mayor. These were the chiefs of Edom. The chapter closes without a mention of the name of God in the entire chapter. Yet as the chronicler mentions these men, as quoting from the sacred history of Genesis, God is the unspoken main character in the entire sweeping drama. This chapter has therefore become a panoramic view of God's dealings with humanity in both creation and redemption. God's name does not actually appear, of course, but his activity is visible everywhere to the discerning reader. We see God almost everywhere in this chapter. We see God calling out for Adam, hiding in his shame. We see God blessing the birth of Seth, providing a son to replace both the one murdered and the murderer. We see God walking with Enoch. We see God calling to Noah and shutting the door of the ark. We see God speaking to the sons of Noah and making his covenant with them. We see God as the Most High, dividing an inheritance to the nations. We see God dividing the earth at the Tower of Babel in the days of Peleg. We see God choosing a Babylonian from an idol-worshipping family named Abraham. We see God stopping the sacrificial knife held over a surrendered Isaac. We see God orchestrating the choice of Israel over his brother Esau, despite all fleshly efforts of man to do otherwise. We see God blessing Esau and his descendants, as he promised. These were the sons of Israel, from the second chapter here. The line of the patriarchs began with Abraham and was passed down to Isaac, and not to Ishmael, and then to Jacob, or Israel, and not to Esau. Yet with the sons of Israel, all the sons were chosen as inheritors of the covenant. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Joseph, Benjamin, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. These 12 sons of Israel actually became 13 tribes of Israel, because 2 tribes came from Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim. The order of names follows Genesis 35, 23 through 26, with one exception. Dan is expected after Benjamin, and no convincing reason has been put forward for the change. A different order is used in the following chapters. From Selman. The sons of Judah. These were 12 sons of Israel, and 13 tribes from those 12 sons. Yet the tribe of Judah received first attention from the chronicler. Judah heads the tribal genealogies and receives more extensive treatment than any other tribe. The reason for this special prominence is to be found in the central position of David's line. From Selman. But while our chronicler lists all 12 of the sons of Israel / Jacob, his attention quickly focuses on Judah, the description of whose tribe occupies the next 2.5 chapters. From Payne. The firstborn of Judah, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, so he killed him. This listing of the line of Judah also includes those with a darker testimony of life, including Onan, Tamar, and Acre, also known as Achan and Joshua. Achan was guilty of unfaithfulness, a key term in Chronicles. This word had the nuance of depriving God of his due, and is Chronicles' favorite explanation for the disaster of the exile. From Selman. Yeah. Achan took stuff from, Jericho, even though it was under the ban and was all to be destroyed. He took it and hid it. Which, it's interesting to me, how God uses those who aren't necessarily the best. the story of Judah is one that's pretty sordid. With his two kids, his two sons subsequently marrying Tamar, but treating her poorly and dying for it. And then Judah himself, on the hunt for a prostitute, finds a costumed Tamar and sleeps with her. And that's essentially how you have this propagation of Judah here. But it's interesting that God uses Judah's line rather than Joseph's line, for instance, just because of Joseph seemed incredibly faithful in his life, yet it was Judah that was chosen. Jesse begot David the seventh. This section of genealogy deals with the line of Judah to David, the founder of the Davidic dynasty that ruled over Israel and Judah. Abishai, Joab, Asahel, and Amasa, the genealogies of these four warriors, were made famous under their half-uncle David, are not drawn from 2 Samuel, but apart from this latter passage, we would not have known their mothers, Zeruiah and Abigail, were stepdaughters of Jesse, born to David's mother by her presumably earlier marriage to Nahash from Pain. Yeah. These were definitely part of David's mighty men. Caleb, the son of... Oh, never mind. I'm going too far again. Anyhow, it's interesting. God, in his providence, directing the flow of mankind here as the generations occur, and just how God is able to accomplish his will despite all of these changing actors throughout human history. So, which I think is strong indication as to why we should trust God, in that he's the one who ultimately outlives all of us, who indeed gives us all continued existence. So, anyhow, thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you have a good day. Bye.